the atomic bazooka. I mean, that sounds like something straight out of a comic book, right? But today, we're diving into a real weapon that truly blurs the line between military hardware and pure science fiction. We're talking about a portable nuclear launcher, something a few soldiers could actually carry and fire on the front lines. Okay, just look at this picture for a second. Let that sink in. This isn't some doctored image or a prop from a movie. It's a real photo of a real US soldier with a recoilless gun designed to fire a nuclear warhead. It sounds completely insane, like something from a video game, right? But for about 10 years during the Cold War, this was a very, very real and terrifying piece of hardware. And that brings us to the single most terrifying question at the heart of this whole thing. What happens when you give a single soldier or a small squad the power to start a nuclear war? The Davy Crockett did exactly that. It put the power of an atom bomb into the hands of a few guys on the ground. You can just imagine the nightmare for military planners. I mean, how on earth you control that kind of power in the middle of a chaotic battlefield? All right, so let's give it its proper name. This thing was officially called the M28/M29 Davy Crockett weapon system. And yeah, that name, Davy Crockett, the American frontiersman, was pretty fitting because this weapon was designed for the wild, unpredictable frontier of a Cold War battlefield. It was a tactical nuke, small enough for soldiers to use on their own, way outside the normal strict chain of command you'd expect for nuclear weapons. So that's what we're going to unpack. First, why on earth it was created. Then, we'll get into how this atomic bazooka actually worked. And finally, the big one, why it was eventually considered just too dangerous to even exist. Okay, so the big Cold War problem. Why would anyone ever build a nuclear rifle? You know, a weapon this extreme doesn't just pop into existence. It had to be forged in the very specific, very paranoid, strategic thinking of the Cold War era.
And look at how fast everything moved. The timeline is just wild. After the Soviets get their own bomb in '49, the arms race kicks into high gear, but it wasn't just about making bigger and bigger bombs. No, it was also about making them smaller, more tactical. And in just a little over 10 years, we went from a weapon that could wipe out a whole city to something you could literally put on a tripod.
So here was the #1 nightmare scenario for NATO planners in Europe. A massive, overwhelming wave of Soviet tanks just flooding into West Germany. The main invasion route was thought to be a place called the Fulda Gap. So the question was, how could a much smaller force ever hope to stop that? Well, the answer they came up with was tactical nukes. And the Davy Crockett was the ultimate expression of that idea. It was designed to give a single platoon enough firepower to basically vaporize an entire enemy tank formation.
All right, let's peek under the hood. How did this sci-fi weapon, this atomic watermelon, actually work? Because trust me, the engineering here is just as wild as the whole concept.
So this is it, the M388 projectile. And you can probably guess why the soldiers nicknamed it the atomic watermelon. It just looks like one. This thing weighed about 76 pounds, and packed inside was a W-54 warhead. And get this, it had a variable yield. You could actually dial the power up or down, all the way up to about 20 tons of TNT. Now that's tiny for a nuclear weapon, but make no mistake, it was still a genuine atomic bomb. So you had two ways to launch this atomic watermelon. You had the M28, which was the lighter, more portable version. A crew could actually break it down and carry it. Then you had its bigger brother, the M29. This one was heavier, usually mounted on a Jeep, and it had about double the range. But here's the key. Both launchers fired the exact same nuclear projectile. Now, the way this thing was fired was pretty clever. It wasn't your typical point and shoot. See, because it was a recoilless gun, meaning gas is shot out the back to prevent a huge kick, they had to be careful. So first, the crew loads the propellant. Then, a big titanium piston goes in. And here's the cool part. The nuclear round actually attaches to the front of that piston, sticking out of the barrel. When it fires, the piston gives the nuke this gentle push out of the barrel before it just falls away. It sounds complicated, but it was absolutely essential to protect the delicate nuclear components from the shock of being fired. So let's be super clear here. This wasn't some weird prototype collecting dust in a lab. It was a real weapon, deployed with thousands of American troops on the front lines. So let's talk about what that terrifying reality actually looked like.
For a full decade, from 1961 to 71, these atomic bazookas were sitting at the world's most dangerous flashpoints. They were in West Germany, aimed right at the Fulda Gap. They were on the Korean Peninsula, where the plan was to fire them into narrow mountain passes. The idea was to create these instant, invisible walls of deadly radiation that would just stop an invasion cold. Chilling stuff.
And when we say lethal, we mean it. 160 meters. That's about the length of 1.5 football fields. Within that radius, the initial blast of radiation was designed to be instantly fatal, 100% lethal. Anyone, and I mean anyone, caught inside that circle would be killed instantly. And again, this wasn't just some theoretical calculation on a chalkboard. This photo you're seeing? This is from the Little Feller Eye test back in 1962. It's a Davy Crockett being fired and detonated for real. This was the moment of chilling proof that yes, this insane little atomic bazooka worked exactly as planned.
Okay, so if this thing worked and it was so powerful, why did it disappear after only about 10 years? Well, the answer is a classic paradox. The weapon's greatest strength was also its most profound, most dangerous weakness.
And this quote, this one from Brigadier General Alvin Cowan, it just says it all. There was a great fear that some sergeant would start a nuclear war. I mean, that's it right there. The Davy Crockett took the decision to go nuclear and pushed it way, way down the chain of command, to a terrifying degree. The command and control problem was, to put it mildly, an absolute nightmare.
In the end, it was just too dangerous to keep around. The risk that some junior officer or NCO, in the heat of battle under incredible pressure, might make a call with irreversible global consequences, it was just too high. The weapon dangerously blurred that critical line between a conventional battle and all-out nuclear war. And that was a line nobody, on either side, wanted to accidentally cross.
And so, here we are. The Davy Crockett went from this, a terrifying live weapon being tested in the desert, to this, a quiet, harmless relic sitting in a museum. It's a powerful symbol of an era that was defined by incredible technological leaps and just unimaginable levels of risk.
Which, leaves us with one last big question. The Davy Crockett is a museum piece now, sure, but the problem it represents, that's not history at all. The questions it forces us to ask about controlling the weapons we create, about where we draw the line, are maybe more relevant today than ever before. It's a pretty stark reminder, isn't it? Just because we can build something doesn't always mean we should.